Hi everyone, welcome to the GovHack 2021 Digital Conference. Before we begin, let's pause to reflect on the fact that we reside on lands of the world's oldest living civilization. I pay my respects to the peoples of the Eastern Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the lands where I'm streaming this event from. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands from where all of you are watching, and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples participating in GovHack. I pay my respects to elders past and present, and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of Australia. So tonight we're joined again by Phil Bickerdike, the APAC Regional Leader of LUMA Institute. And he'll be talking to us about using design thinking to create better solutions to your challenges. Part 2, Ideation and Rapid Iteration. Thanks, Phil. Take it away.
Thanks, Beulah. Great to be here again. So yes, just a quick intro to who I am. My name's Phil. I'm joining you from Geelong in Australia, and I'm LUMA's Regional Director in this part of the world. I'm a designer. I've also, at previous times in my career, been an engineer and a computer scientist, and I'm really passionate about making things better. So a little bit about LUMA. We're an international organisation, and we're about building capability within individuals and teams, and we've worked all over the globe. And today I wanted to talk about design thinking again, which is an approach to design that helps you create better solutions to your challenges. And previously we spoke about how that word design is really just about making positive change in the world. It's about changing existing situations, and that's exactly what this is all about, particularly with GovHack. Design thinking is also known as human-centered design, and it's a way of problem solving that nurtures 6 key innovative behaviours. And we went in depth into this last time, but just to recap on those 6 behaviours: questioning, where we're questioning the challenge; being empathetic, trying to understand the perspective of the people that we're in service of; being visual, communicating our ideas in a visual way; being imaginative, creativity; being iterative, doing things and trying things and improving on those things; and then being collaborative, of course, which is working with other people. So last time we spoke about framing our challenges, framing problems in a way that's going to help us to really make a big impact with the challenges we wish to solve. Today, what I wanted to do is move on from talking about framing those challenges to actually addressing those challenges. And obviously, the first thing we want to do when we've got a challenge to solve is to come up with some ideas on how to solve it. So what we quite often will do is we will do some brainstorming. And this is a picture of brainstorming. And as we know, brainstorming has been around for a long time. This is a picture from an ad agency back in the 50s, I believe. But unfortunately for us, that brainstorming hasn't really changed all that much in the way that it's traditionally run. And there's quite a few pitfalls. There's quite a few challenges to the way we actually do brainstorming. As you can see here, it looks a bit chaotic, right? There's a lot of people with their attention on different things. There's probably lots of chatter happening in the room, people calling out. You've got somebody here in the corner trying to document the conversation. It's not a very effective way to actually help us to generate ideas. Also, it can tend to favour those people that are really extroverted, that like to talk out loud in the crowd. And so those loud people in the room, they tend to be the ones that get heard. And then if you're more of a quiet person, more reserved, then perhaps you don't get the opportunity, or you don't feel confident to share your ideas equally. So what I wanted to do today is introduce a way that we can come up with ideas, come up with really bold ideas to solving our GovHack challenges, or any challenge, in fact, and do that in such a way that mitigates some of these problematic aspects of brainstorming that we may have been accustomed to. So I'm going to take us over to LUMA Workplace again, and I'm going to show you a recipe that we can use using some LUMA methods to actually help us with this process of generating some really great ideas. So this is the recipe on LUMA Workplace, and the recipe is hatch bold ideas with a remote team. Now, there are 2 methods in this recipe, and I'm going to take you through them both. It's suggested that we spend about an hour to do this, and the first method that we want to use here is one called Creative Matrix. It's a way to rapidly generate ideas. So if I click here on the Creative Matrix, it will take us to the method page on LUMA Workplace, and we can have a bit more of a close look at this. First, I'm going to talk about what the structure of the creative matrix, which is a format for sparking new ideas at the intersection of distinct categories. So I'm going to unpack that a little bit for you and explain what I mean by that. So this is an indication of how we construct the creative matrix. So it looks like a big grid, and across the columns there, we have categories that are related to people. So once we've settled on the challenge we want to explore, the challenge we want to solve, what we want to do is turn our attention to aspects that are going to help us understand and relate to the people that we are solving the challenge for. So this could be different market segments or different categories of people that we're solving the challenge for. It could be different service touch points within that experience, or it could be, you know, distinct problem statements that really uncover the needs of people that we are thinking about. So that's how we want to structure these columns within our creative matrix. And then in the vertical there, we want to think about enablers. So this could be, you know, emerging technology, cultural drivers, market trends, for example. In our case, maybe we're thinking about particular data sets we have available or information that we're able to leverage in terms of bringing solutions and solving those challenges. So that's the basic structure of the creative matrix and the way we want to set it up. And there's a range of different enablers and suggestions on LUMA Workplace that we could use. And then when we come to actually running the activity, this is what the activity looks like. So we have our central challenge in the top right-hand corner here. In this case, they're talking about how might we increase civic engagement on voter registration. And this is a project that was done in the US. And you'll see at the top of the columns there, they have different sort of nuanced statements, problem statements that they're working on in each of these different categories. And down the verticals there, down the horizontal, sorry, they have different types of enablers or different ways in which they could bring solutions to life. And at the intersection of each of those different categories is where people are generating their ideas. So every individual idea is represented on a Post-it note. And the way we generate these ideas is not just by using words, but you'll see a number of pictures there as a way to express those ideas. And everybody is generating those ideas at the same time. So we would run this method for maybe 10 or 15 minutes and have an opportunity for people to rapidly generate as many ideas as they can while being, you know, with their ideas being sparked and their creativity being fueled by thinking about the intersection of these different categories. And what you will find is in a very, very short period of time, even just by working silently and generating these ideas silently, so you're not talking over one another and you're not getting into detailed debates, you're able to generate a large volume of ideas. And one of the key things we want to do here is generate a wide range of ideas. We want to have lots of options here. We want to really diverge our thinking. So that's our first method, creative matrix. And once we've got a range of different ideas there to work with, then what we want to do is maybe think about, well, how do we take some of those ideas forward? So then you go through a process of reviewing those ideas. And then you may take one of those ideas and feed this into another method that we call round robin. This is where we advance our ideas, and we advance ideas together. So again, there's detailed steps here as for all the recipes within LUMA Workplace. And I'm going to tell you about this round robin method, which is a way of actually co-creating our ideas and fleshing them out into some more detail. So we open up this page for round robin. Round robin is an exercise that allows our ideas to evolve as they are passed from one person to another. So you will see here that we have these people that are working together in a group, and they're using these templates. And on these templates, they're actually fleshing out a series of steps to understand this idea further. In the template itself, you start with your initial idea, and then you pass it to the next person. And what they do when they receive that template is they look at the idea that you have provided, and then they try and critique that idea. They try and look at the idea that you've proposed and think, well, what's all the ways that this may not work? What are the risks? What are the challenges associated with this idea? And then you pass that along to the next person. And the next person will look at not only the initial idea and the critique of that idea, the challenges associated with that, but then also think about, well, how do they come up with a new idea or improve the idea to actually overcome some of those challenges? So what we find here, and this is another example of that round robin template, you will see the different sections here. So we're beginning with a challenge statement. the original proposed solution, why the solution will fail, and the final concept. This one idea has been fleshed out and worked on by 3 different people. So we're getting the real benefit of collaboration and diverse thinking to refine these ideas and overcome some of the potential challenges with those ideas that we've identified. So it's a really great way to, once you've generated those ideas using the creative matrix and discussed them, and you've sort of decided where you think the best ideas are, to make those ideas stronger, to actually refine those ideas and think through in a bit more detail about how these ideas might come to life. So those 2 methods paired together are this recipe that we can use to really hatch bold ideas. And it really will allow us to really get multiple perspectives into idea creation process, allow the opportunity for equal voices within your team, because good ideas can come from anywhere. So it's really important that you try and make the most of the different perspectives that you have in the team that you're working with. And these are a couple of great methods that really help you to get the most out of your team, give everybody an opportunity to contribute to that ideation process. And when we think about contrasting this with our traditional brainstorming situation, where there's lots of people talking over one another, there's lots of ideas being thrown around, a lot of the stuff's not really captured. This is a way in which we can actually capture our ideas and make sure that we have a really good record of that. We can actually, start to use some of that visual behavior we talked about last time to actually visualize what we actually mean, get those ideas out of our head and onto the page so they can start to have a more robust conversation. Again, as with all of the LUMA methods and recipes that we have available on LUMA Workplace, there's a facilitation guide that you can look at that can give you some great video tips on how to run these methods effectively with your team. And there's also some resources there. So you can launch these templates directly in your online collaboration tools. So even if you're not working together in person, you can do a creative matrix or you can do a round robin using any of these collaboration tools where we have integration with LUMA Workplace. So that's the first sort of aspect I wanted to talk about today. It's like, how do we come up with some really innovative ideas? How do we really push the boundaries on the possibilities of what we could do to make something that's really compelling to address these challenges? So once we've come up with these ideas, one of the dangers we run into, and if I just go back to my slides here, one of the dangers we run into here when we come up with an idea is we can fall in love with our idea. This is something that I affectionately call the time-love continuum. And you will see here that the relationship over time with how much we love our idea is pretty much linear. This can even happen to us in a short period of time, even when we're just working, on a hackathon, on a weekend. We can invest so much of our time and energy into this idea that we really start to love it. We become really attached to it. That's great. It's great to fall in love and be passionate about what you're doing. But what also happens is that as you fall more and more in love with your idea, then you become less and less receptive to feedback about that idea. So what if the idea that you've fallen in love with isn't actually such a great idea? And maybe, when people give you some feedback on that and you find out that it doesn't really work, then, you're setting yourself up for heartbreak. So what we want to do is get into this pattern of not just coming up with great ideas, and not just pursuing and falling in love with our ideas, but allowing ourselves the ability to hold those ideas lightly, so that when we have the opportunity to manifest those ideas in a way that can be tested. So we want to get into this loop of making something, bringing it to life, so taking that idea that we've come up with, and then putting it in front of somebody to test. And then what we do is from that testing process, we're able to learn. And this is the iterative cycle that we want to follow when we're working with our ideas. We don't just want to take one idea, start to develop it, and then move on from there. We want to actually get into the practice of actually sharing our ideas and integrating that feedback, because it's going to make our ideas even stronger. So the next recipe I wanted to share with you on LUMA Workplace is a way in which we can do that. So this recipe is about rapidly prototyping and testing a digital product. And there's quite a number of methods in this recipe, but I'll go through this relatively quickly. The first method here is bullseye diagramming. And this is a way of narrowing our scope. So if I open up bullseye diagramming here, what we want to do is unify our team around what are the crucial elements that we want to move forward with in our solution. because we may have lots and lots of different ideas for features, but we can't do everything at once. And certainly when you're time constrained, as you are in a hackathon, you want to make sure that you're making progress on the most important things first. So a bullseye diagram looks like this. It's a way of ranking items in order of importance using a target diagram. So you will see here, the way the target diagram looks, you'll have these concentric circles. And right in the middle circle, they're like the bullseye on a dartboard. They're the most important things that you should be focusing on. And the target for that inner circle is probably maybe about 3 items that you really want to focus on as being your primary features or primary things that you should be working on in the context of your solution. Beyond that, you may have the secondary tier of importance, and you may have about 5 items that fall within that category. And then beyond that, you have this tertiary level of importance. So you may have a list of all these different features, and what you want to do as a team is negotiate the priorities of the things you're going to be working on, and making sure that you are not trying to bite off more than you can chew, right? Or try and add too many features so you get overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that you're trying to achieve. This is a very disciplined way to approach how we actually start to work on our ideas and start to develop those solutions. And so once we fill in our bullseye diagram, it's going to look a little bit like this. So we've decided what are the features we want to focus on as primary importance, and that's where we're going to focus our efforts first. And then maybe once we've made some progress on those most important aspects, then we're going to start to work on some of these next tier of priority. So it's a very focused way of actually starting to think about what's going to end up in our solution and where should we be putting our effort. So once we've gone through that process of starting to prioritize the different features and elements that we want to bring into our solution, then the next thing we can do is we can start to use the second method here, which is called schematic diagramming, to diagram the system, to try to map out an outline of what the structure of that solution might be. This is a really great visual method that helps us to come to a shared understanding of the solution within our team. So if I open up schematic diagramming, I'll give you a look at what that looks like. So the outline and structure of the essential components of the system is essentially what we're doing with the schematic diagram. And this is an example of a schematic diagram here where this team is working on a mobile app of some description. And what they're looking to do is understand how the different elements of the interface are going to flow in with one another. They're going to be thinking about what data is required, what functions are required, what interactions are required to move, to the different aspects of this application and the service that they're trying to provide. So getting all of those ideas out of your head and providing some structure can be really, really helpful to your team to actually identify how this thing is going to come together as a solution. And there's a range of different ways in which we can do schematic diagramming. We can use it for those sort of more visual interfaces, but it could even just be for different components of the system that are a bit more abstracted. So this looks basically just like a flow, but it's giving an idea of how things are going to work and how things are going to be tied together. So some more examples there of schematic diagram. And once we've done that, once we've mapped out a rough sort of map of what the solution or a diagram of what the solution is going to be, then we can move on to the next step of bringing our idea to life in such a way that we can test it with people. So this is where we move on to the third method in our recipe, which is build to learn. We want to build something. We want to take a few elements from that schematic diagram where some of the key perhaps assumptions we're making or some of the key make or break moments within the system that we wish to build. And we want to flesh out even more detail around that. And the key thing that we want to do here is to learn through the building and the making process. So as you start to bring your idea to life and try to make it more substantial, you start to realize maybe some gaps in your thinking, maybe some things that you need to be considering or things you need to emphasize. And the technique we can use to do this, or the method we use to do this, is rough and ready prototyping. Now, we emphasize the rough and ready aspect of prototyping here. We're not necessarily talking about prototypes that are going to be testing the technical functionality of your solution. What we want to do here is provide enough detail as a rapidly built model that approximates the appearance and the behavior of your solution. This is something we want to be able to use to demonstrate and to experiment with some of the key features and the key questions we have about the solution we want to deliver. So here's an example of a physical prototype for a device. But when we think about using it in the context of digital solutions, we have a number of different elements here as well. So this is what a paper prototype might look like for, again, another mobile app. And this is for a bike sharing solution. And you will see that the team is just using very, very simple materials here. They're basically just taking some post-it notes, some bits of paper, and they're drawing some things on those pieces of paper that would indicate what would be shown on a mobile device. And then they're physically sticking that to the mobile device so that they can get a sense of how people might interact with that in their hand. So very, very simple, very, very quick to do. But the benefit of this is you can learn a lot very, very quickly as well. So you don't get into the situation where you start to invest a lot of time in technical complexity in terms of developing those features and trying to make things work. First, what you're trying to do is make sure that you're about to build the right thing, that what you've actually proposed as a solution is going to be workable for people. And so the key thing to a good rough and ready prototype is some aspect of interactivity. So it's not just about taking it beyond the schematic diagram where you've mapped out what the different elements are. Now what you want to do is test when somebody interacts with this, what sort of interactive features can you bring to life? And how can you use that as an opportunity to learn about the value and functionality of the prototype and the value and the functionality of the solution to the challenge that you want to provide to people. So lots of different ways in which we can use rough and ready prototyping there, and lots of different materials that we can use. And of course, it doesn't have to be all pen and paper. If we're working in a remote team, we can also use a template using one of our online collaboration tools as well. And we can actually start to use those templates to look at how do we bring those features together on a digital interface. And once we've built something, right, we've got something in our hands, we've got something that's relatively physical or tangible, shall we say. What do we do with it then? Well, as we sort of said before, this is about make, test, and learn, okay? We've made it. We've made this thing. The next thing we want to do is test it. And so if I go back to our recipe here, the final method in our recipe is where we can get feedback using a technique called think aloud testing. And this is where we invite people outside your project team to use the prototype to complete a task. And you observe opportunities for improvement on your next iteration. So you're giving yourself the opportunity to learn here. This is a few things that are really important here, right? When we're thinking about showing our prototype to people, we want to be very clear about being task oriented. So we would like you to use this prototype to achieve a particular task. And when people have a task to do and you set them about to go and achieve that task, it's then the opportunity for you to learn about whether they have been successful or not in actually completing that task. So if I open up Think Aloud Testing, and I'll take us through a little more detail on how we use that method. This is generally what a Think Aloud test will look like. And this is, again, it's a physical prototype that we've got here, but they've mocked up some sort of interface here for an in-car entertainment system. You'll notice there's 3 people in the picture here, okay? There are 3 different roles we talk about within Think Aloud testing. There's this person who would consider to be the moderator, who essentially guides the person through the test in a way that they propose the task that they want them to do. And it's important that the moderator gives enough context to the user so they know what to do, but you don't give too much away. It's not about directing them step by step and giving them instructions on what to do. You'll learn so much more from your testing process, your Think Aloud testing process, if you give them a task to do and then you allow them to navigate their way through that experience. The next person, of course, that's center stage here is the tester themselves. And this is anybody that you can find that's outside your project team. Ideally, it would be somebody that is within the key segment that you're hoping to design this service for, but sometimes those people aren't always available to you. So anybody that you can grab from another team or family and friends to actually test your idea with is going to help you to really progress your thinking on this. Now, the key instruction to that person, that user who is going to be using your solution, your prototype, is to ask them to think aloud. What do we mean by that? We mean that we want them to narrate their experience as they are interacting with the prototype you have given them. So you've given them a task. You're saying, in this case, we want you to find your favorite track on the radio, and this person would be coached by the moderator to think aloud as they do that. we would ask them to verbalize what they're seeing on the screen, what they're thinking in their minds. Okay, well, I think what I might need to do is I might need to press this button because that looks like it's going to allow me to search for something. And then I might be able to enter some characters here. And so you're trying to coach the person to verbalize everything that they're thinking. Now, it can feel a bit weird. It can sound a bit weird to begin with, but once you guide people as to the right level of detail that you're hoping to find out from them, with their brain on speakerphone, as we like to say, then you're able to quite naturally get into this mode of sharing exactly what your impressions are. The third person in the picture is equally very important, and they, of course, are the note taker. So while this test is happening, you want to grab somebody in your team who's able to observe the user's reaction to everything that you've shown them in the prototype. Write down any of the key things that they say, any of the points at which they make a remark about how they maybe tripped up or they're a bit confused and those sorts of things. Another key thing to remember here, right, is sometimes our user will say, well, what does that button do? And the best way to respond to those questions is to reflect back a question. What do you think it should do? What does it mean to you? What do you think it means? Because that's how we learn the most. And they're often our golden nugget moments in when we do this sort of testing, because they allow the user to interpret what we've put in front of them, and then sometimes even provide a better idea or something we haven't even thought of as the team. So look out for those moments, those opportunities to ask people to really verbalize what they're thinking and what their impressions are. So that's our Think Aloud testing. And of course, once we've done our Think Aloud testing, we're going to have a lot of feedback. We're going to have a lot of notes on what we've tested with people. And that's really going to guide us in our next iteration of that solution. So once we've done the prototype, we may decide that we want to refine that prototype. We may decide that we want to try to do some more testing with some more people, or we may find that we've tested enough of our assumptions and we feel pretty satisfied that we're on the right track. So we may be able to just take that prototype now and start to develop something which is a bit more robust, something which is actual code, we start to look at the functional requirements and start to test that in a different way. But the key to this recipe here is it's really about, when we're talking about rapid prototyping and testing, this is all before we've actually started to necessarily build the final product. This is all about trying to test the proposition and trying to get that feedback to make sure that we're on the right track, and using it as an opportunity to get that feedback loop into the process, to learn that we're on the right track, test our assumptions around what we think, and then we can come up with a much stronger and more compelling solution. So they're the couple of recipes I wanted to talk about today. Firstly, about ideation, coming up with those great ideas, and then moving those ideas forward through testing, through prototyping and testing, and iterating on those ideas. The final thing I wanted to do today is share with you I think I've lost it. There we go. The final thing I want to share is this landing page that you can find on lumainstitute.com. The URL is very easy to remember, lumainstitute.com/govhack. And as part of the sponsorship of LUMA Institute for this event, we are offering a 3-month subscription to the LUMA Workplace platform. It's that platform that I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, and the platform that I've just been demonstrating. So all you need to do to get access to LUMA Workplace is to come to this page, fill in your details here, and put your email address in here, and then we will set you up with your very own account on LUMA Workplace. Now, this is a 3-month subscription, so you can sign up today and you can get familiar with the platform and really get ready and hone your skills around how you might apply some design thinking to your GovHack challenge. So you've got a couple of weeks before the event now to really start to explore that. And then, of course, once the event has happened, during the event, then you can certainly utilize that platform to further your development of your ideas in solving the GovHack challenges. Great. So with that, I will leave that up on the screen so everybody can remember that URL. I really encourage you all to sign up, and really wish you all the best with the GovHack event. with coming up with some fantastic ideas to the challenges.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks for going through part 2 of your talk with us today. Really appreciate it.